You could count the punters on one hand, but last week they were completely rammed. They were filled up to the gunnels, they were queuing down the street. They said, you should have been here last week. I swear, you should have been here last week. Oh yeah, you should have been here last week.
Hello and welcome to the new episode of You Should Have Been Here Last Week, the comedy industry podcast hosted by myself, Steve Grimmin, and my fellow comedian, Paul Ricketts. Every week we sort of delve into a different corner of the comedy biz that we call show. One of the persistent themes that keeps cropping up is the increasing use of social media and how it's now a prerequisite in the comedic world. But it can be, of course, a double-edged sword. And that's what we're going to look at today. The double-edged sword.
The sword of Damocles hanging over the heads of all comedians.
Yeah.
Because one, you need social media now, apparently. Let's face up to reality. You need it to be a success. But it also could be the end of you. Both things can happen from doing the socials. The socials just sounds so sweet and innocent. I just need something for the socials.
I know, it does sound like an old-fashioned, like a social club, doesn't it? But it can be anything but.
But nowadays, it is a way to drum up work or lose work, depending on how good you are at doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we ought to look at the fact that it's interesting because each different type of social media has its own. I mean, the easiest one, if you like to argue over, is Facebook, isn't it? As was shown to a large extent during the 2 years of the pandemic.
If you go before that, it used to be the message boards which were attached to certain websites. If you go back to the days of Chortle.
I wasn't going to mention that.
There were lots and lots of bellends that were on Chortle, but they had assumed names. Sometimes I recognised the fact there were some people arguing with themselves under different personas just to try and get an argument going. They would start having an argument with the three of their different personas, hoping for other people to join in. But social media, there's people there under assumed names as well. But we have no choice as comics but to go on to social media because, one, all the jobs have gone on there. In terms of pro comedy, you have to go on there to the different forums to find work.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's likened that situation on Facebook to being very similar to the way that dockers used to congregate outside the gates of the docks in times gone by, and the foreman would go, yeah, you. And there is a certain element of that.
There's many Facebook forums where a promoter will say, I need an act to do blah, blah minutes for blah, blah money. Everyone put your name underneath this post so I can see how many people aren't working on that night across the UK. And everyone has to write their name. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. And then suddenly, halfway down, or even a third of the way down of the 40 names, someone will go, I can't believe there's so many good comics not working on this day. As a promoter will go, yes, why am I paying so much? And I think, why don't you just give us an email so we can send our availabilities to them? Or why can't we personally message them? Why do we have to do this public in front of all our other fellow professionals, prove that we're not working that weekend?
Yeah, it is not good. I mean, the private email thing, so it used to be phone. Then that died out, and then privately emailing. I mean, even that's very rare now. It's very rare. Everyone puts everything on the. But I do like it as well, though, when sometimes somebody slips up and they don't put the money on, and then immediately it's like people go, "What? Put the money. What's the date?" Although some people would go, "What's the date?" Even though the date
is
when is this? Look, if you just scroll up again, you'll fucking see when it is. Oh dear. There's that aspect of it which is a bit weird as well. I mean, using it to a lot of promoters now saying we'd appreciate it if you share it on social media at least twice before the gig. We'd very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why twice, but
Yes, it's part of your job to advertise gigs that you're doing. There's nothing else I can really say about that apart from it's not something I want to do because I like the idea and I realise it's an old-fashioned idea which has been discussed on this show before, that you just turn up, get the money, go home. But you know, there's more to it than that, and I have to accept that. I do accept that. And I do now repost stuff about gigs I'll be performing at.
do you know what does annoy me about that sometimes, though, when you're doing, because I do it all the time, but then you then have to look up. It annoys me sometimes. This is maybe it's a first world problem, but when you're doing that thing where you're retweeting something, but then you've never worked with the people before and you don't follow them, you then have to find their Twitter handle on, or X as it is now. And sometimes the thing that really annoys me is when it's not their name. It's a specific, like, weird. You're thinking, just put your fucking name. Anyway, sorry, that's a bugbear of mine. But, there's that, and then of course there's tweeting about it afterwards. People putting pictures of the gig. I mean, Steve Day's very good. I mean, I did a gig with him recently in Great Torrington, and he did that thing where he gets a whole audience to do that. Yeah. And then he takes a picture and he does it for every single gig he does. And then immediately he's finished, he goes, "Great night tonight in Great Torrington." You know, which is good. I think it's because I think otherwise it's almost as if, the old, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, did it happen? So, if a gig takes place and it's not on Twitter in picture form, did it actually exist?
How do you know it's even a new picture? You could be putting the same picture up every single time. Nobody would ever know. There'd be some bloke going, "Wait a minute, I've been going out to all these different comedy nights because here I am in the picture."
Yeah, that's right. There's a bloke with a beard. He's always there to the left. Yeah.
Promoters have asked me to do that while I've been on stage, and I've got a crap phone, so you're wasting your time trying to get me to do it with my iPhone 7. But it's part of it. I do pictures of the gig, and I put them up, and people then get annoyed, saying, "Well, why didn't you tell us you were going to be there?"
Oh God.
But but you also, that's part of the job now, that you have to do social media posts telling people where you're going to be, because they're not going to go to your website like they did in the old days. They want it in their feed. And because the feed has become all encompassing and the algorithms become all encompassing, we've got to play into that. To go back to what you're talking about earlier on about how over the pandemic, I actually thought social media would be the savior, be the making of the pandemic, because we weren't allowed to go out. Suddenly here's this community that we were already part of that's going to keep us sane, and of course turned out to be completely utterly the opposite. And the people I lost during the pandemic were mainly on Facebook. I know that's one of your lines, but I had to get it in.
I know. What happened was that because it was a pressure cooker environment and people were very, very depressed. Lots of people, thought they might never work again, etc., etc. And then it just showed itself in different ways. And then people sometimes revealed themselves to be massive cocks, as you have already said. I mean, I was just listening to the radio before, and Disabled One was on, saying that the way people talked about people with disabilities during the pandemic was absolutely gobsmacking sometimes. Yeah, when you'd argue with them and say, "Well, look, what about people with disabilities?" "Oh, well, fuck them. They should die. I'm me. I'm more important than humanity."
I want to go and run my open night, which I do once a week. I'm quite prepared to see millions of people die for the right for me to put on 15 acts for no money.
And then if you argue them, they go, "Here's a graph."
Yes, but the person whose career actually got made from this is this. There's a comic now who did a lot of stuff during the pandemic, mainly with graphs, trying to prove that it was just a normal respiratory problem. So then I started putting up graphs of how shoe sales had declined in the same period of time. Of course, it exactly fitted his graph.
And have Timpsons been in touch with you? No. They haven't.
Yeah, no, they haven't. Well, I mean, it did start something, and it's continued since then. That comic on comic arguments on any political issue, especially in the most divisive times that we've ever lived through in my lifetime, there's plenty for people to argue about.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, we're talking as two older, we are older comics, but you have to adapt to the new environment. But one of the things I think is a big problem with social media is that people don't seem to think there's also a disconnect where people think, oh, it's not like real life. Therefore, I can say whatever I like and there will be no consequences in the real world. And it's not like that. I mean, in a court case, there's a famous court case with a Scottish comic who was sending dick pics to people. And the case against them collapsed because the police said, well, he won't get a fair trial because it's all been aired on social media. And people were told to stop posting about it and it would ruin the Crown prosecution's case. But they wouldn't stop. They couldn't stop themselves. And I read several posts where, well, I feel I have to say this. It's just... I don't know where. I mean, it does exist in the real world. Well, it is the real world,
It is. It's part of people's identities. Their online identity, for some people, is even more important than their identity in the real world.
Well, you and I both know certain comics that behave like absolute dicks on social media, but then when you read them in the real life, they're all right, but they seem to think that people will be able to make this. No, if you're going to behave like a wanker, then people are going to think you're a wanker. There's no,
because you're never anonymous now. So when I first started stand up, which is 15, 16 years ago, then you'd go to the gig, do the gig. If you had an argument with some bloke, you'd get in the car, go home. Nowadays, that's pretty much the same, apart from the bloke you had an argument with will track you down. I have a message for you, say, I ain't finished yet. I'm finished with you. And then you go, oh my God. And okay, you can say you can block these people. But even so, the stalker issue does come into it. But even with comics, that comes into it. Because I've had comics I've never met before. I've got into arguments, this is admittedly during the pandemic, and they started stalking me and trying to befriend me once I defriended this person for very, very good reasons. He put some racist stuff up on my page. He started stalking me and coming at me under other guises, all of them ridiculous. He'd either pick really incredibly over-the-top Asian identities or really incredibly over-the-top black identities, thinking I'm going to be idiot enough to go for Abdul-Jabbar II, or Leroy Winston, whatever. No, even the picture is a dead giveaway.
And by the way, I mean, most of these do happen on either what used to be Twitter or X or Facebook, because it's very hard. I've just been thinking it's quite hard to argue with someone on Instagram, which is mainly a picture based. Although you could just go, a Photoshop of two fingers, and then you could go on and on and on, couldn't it? Just a big bell, and then at the end, just because pictures on Instagram just go, shut the fuck up. Conversely, not only can comics get in touch with each other and promote, etc., but so can punters now as well. So what happens after a gig is sometimes you'll have a great gig, and but then someone will say something really nice. That's great, but the converse can also happen as well. As you're on your way home from the gig, I thought you were shit tonight. Like 2 hours after the gig.
Because at the end of comic sets nowadays, there's a great big long stream of you can follow me on blah 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 blah, and then the idea that you have to do that even if you died on your hole.
Oh, I don't know. But problem is though that we've just been talking that people will, if someone's that much of a dickhead, they will probably look you up and find you anyway, don't they?
And they also the other thing happens as well. They look you up before the gig, and it's only in the last couple of years that I've seen, and it's a sad thing to admit, that I'll be doing a bit And I can see the audience, as soon as I start doing it, nodding their heads going, oh, he's going to do that bit. Because they watched it online.
Well, I've been finding this recently about the thing that I posted on TikTok, Captain Tom, which is now approaching 1 million views. I'm not imagining it. When I come to do it and announce it, I can feel that some people have gone, oh, it's this
expectation. Yeah, it's the bit we came for.
It's really weird. It is a weird thing. I mean, imagine that multiplied 1 million times. If you sort of like, if everything you put on there is successful, which is a different kind of fame, isn't it, from telly fame? It
moves you a bit into that Monty Python area where it doesn't really, the audience know your sketch better than you do, and that you're performing and they're mouthing along to it. This is the bit we came to see.
That is interesting about, talking about people getting in contact after the gig as well. I Joke Pit. Remember Joke Pit from the pandemic?
They're still going.
I know. Oh God! I mean, they're still going strong, but they were really popular. Lots of comics went on it. Anyway, it's that classic thing of they keep messaging me saying you have a new review, and all it is, it's not a review as in they say they have to rate it out of 5 stars and then say would you recommend to friends, and then if they want they can put a comment. And the last few, it's like that classic thing. It shows you. I went through it, and then I had like 2 4-star, 1 5-star, several 5 stars, and then right at the bottom I had a 1 star. So it just goes to show that if that's all you're going to do. I mean, years ago I went on there once, and that really weird time when social media was just starting, so about 10, 15 years ago, just typed my name into Google, and then I saw all sorts of shit which I wish I'd never seen. There were lots of nice things, but also there's the horrible things as well, which kind of are more powerful when you see them written down, aren't they?
Of course it is. I mean, Googling your own name is fraught with danger anyway. Yeah. I mean, I did it, and the last time I did it, I found out that there was some site in America that had rated how much money I was earning through comedy. There's a picture of me as well as a clip. And it estimated that I was earning $4 million a year. I wish that was true. And the idea that this website is putting this out. So there's people, even my family going, oh, Paul, so you're on $4 million. Where's off? How come we're getting this shit for Christmas? You're on $4 million.
That's fucking brilliant, isn't it? $4 million a year. There's people in Northampton have taken that seriously, Paul.
I know.
Turning up to the Road Menders Centre and going, oh, what's he doing here? He should be playing Las Vegas.
Yeah, that's what I should be doing on $4 million a year. But it's still out there. If anyone wants to search my name, track that down. It's apparently it's still there. Hopefully, the amount has gone up.
I mean, we have touched on that thing about people arguing online and stuff like this, and there's been a famous case recently. We won't go into the names or anything, but it is a double-edged sword because, yes, it's a great tool for self-promotion, but also people can have meltdowns on there, can't they?
Before we even get into that, there's one I saw once, and something I'm surprised I haven't seen again since, a comedian who broke up with his partner, and it all happened live on social media, with her posting, he's outside the door now, and him posting as well, going, let me in. Well, why are you doing this on Facebook? Well, everyone needs to know what you've done to me. And then people chip in and go, get rid of him. And he goes, you're not her friend. You don't even know her. Yes, we do. We know what you've done.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I remember the actual thing as well.
And I felt for everybody in it, but I did, because no one wants that stuff done live. But we're in a situation now where if we're going to have mass shooters setting up a live feed, a breakup is the bare minimum of things we should expect in the future. But to get back to your point, if you're a political comic or make pronouncements on politics full stop on social media, it is fraught with danger now because it's a very combative space. Whether you do it or not, stuff I used to put up years ago, I now think do I need to do that? On certain issues, I would rather, and I hate to say this, keep my opinion to myself.
Yeah, but that's that's a sad situation, because what happens is that the actual discourse now is so horrible, especially on Twitter, as X as it's known, is that people, you never, lots of times when you see posts like that, you never find people going, oh, well, that's very reasonable, but you don't, because people just go, you're a twat.
Yeah. How can you
I
say
hate
that?
you. How can you say that? Vegan cheese, you bastard.
Yeah, it's me, the same voice I always use for everybody else. I hate you. Yeah, it's always you, isn't it? It's always you. This is.
It is. It's always me.
Pointing the finger.
I hate you. I have never heard of the block button. I've just got to give you my opinion.
No, but I hate blocking people. That's the thing.
Oh, I love blocking people. Oh, that's great.
No, I want to keep a breadth of opinion on the groups of people that I interact with online. I don't want them all to. I don't want the echo chamber. I don't want that. So I am still friends with some people whose discourse I despise. Growing by the day with some of them, but I still keep them there. But I don't know. It's just, I think you do have to be more careful. There's been many examples of that we can point to in the recent past. Yeah, you can lose your whole career out of this, or stuff that you thought was private. There's another thing, to go back to what we were saying before. Yeah, I've also seen people lose their careers because ex-partner goes on social media and starts putting stuff out there, and it all blows up in the performer's face. Social media as surrogate policemen is also another thing.
Yeah, and everybody thinks they know everything about everybody's lives, or they can make a judgment on it.
The only thing I want to make a statement on now is the whole idea that cancel culture is a lefty liberal thing is the biggest load of bollocks, because people on the right really know how to cancel. They've had more experience of it. A lot of the time they've had the power to do it, more than lefties ever have. Cancel culture, whether you believe in it or not, and I'm still a bit like that about the whole thing, but it is not one-sided politically.
No, I mean, and also it can often be that the biggest edgelords in the world, we go on and on about wokery and snowflakes, turn out to be the biggest snowflakes you've ever seen in your life when anybody pushes back on what they've said. You can't say anything anymore. Black people are lazy, and then they get a pile and they go, stop it. So it does work both ways, as you say.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we have touched on this in interviews with lots of people, that social media is here to stay. It's not going away. It's not going anywhere. And people are going to have to keep using it. Maybe there'll be a different form of it, different form of social media. I don't know. Because X is not, I don't know the way things are going, whether X is long for this world,
You've gone from Twitter to X. Does that sound like it's become a softer, more wonderful space to be in?
Twitter. Well, I can vouch for
Tweetyberg. X. Yeah. X is a harsh little letter.
The new one is Threads, isn't it? Which sounds beautiful. Like we can all weave a beautiful new world together. And then Blue Sky. There's another one called Blue Sky, isn't there?
You know more about this than me. You really do.
Well, and also, there's the other one where everyone, the other side, isn't it? Reddit and Telegram and all the rest of it.
They're more message boardy type social media spaces. Yeah. Let's face it, there's loads of it. And due to demographic and age, you get drawn to one or t'other.
Hey, that's very funny. You just reminded me to be nostalgic for message boards and chat rooms. Remember chat rooms?
Yeah.
And, comics would be, and then so-and-so has left the chat room in tears. Social media is only a reflection of what's going on in society anyway. I mean, it's okay, you could argue it's driving it as well, but it reflects trends that are going on in society. So all the arguments that are taking place on there are the arguments that are taking place in in the meatverse as opposed to the metaverse.
And I hate to say it, nostalgic for the days when you'd have stupid opinions only said to you in a pub, and then you'd walk away from the person and think, well, he's a bit of or she's a bit of an arsehole. And then you go back to your seat and sit down. You know, they weren't your friend. They weren't going to constantly send you messages. You didn't have to interact with them. You didn't have to then interact with them because they brought their friends to attack you because you disagreed with them.
About 6 months ago, when people thought that Twitter was actually going to collapse, I said, "Oh, it's a real shame, you know, because people just have to go back to shouting at each other at bus stops." Because a lot of it is that kind of discourse. The fucking aliens are fucking coming over here. And then they scream at you, and then you're supposed to go, oh, you know. That's exactly what it is a lot of the time, you know. And then 3 opinions come along at once.
Yeah. And you think, oh, I like all 3 of them. Which one do I get on?
Get on board. Be careful, kids. That's what we're saying, isn't it? Be careful out there.
Be careful. It's like the sea. It's a cruel mistress.
like the sea and like the air. Yeah. Okay, I think it's a good point to end, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it is. So if you've enjoyed watching this podcast on social media, please get in contact with us on social media in all the forms you possibly can. So email, YouTube, whatever. Send us a message, subscribe, like, follow.
Well, there's also, please, if you did enjoy it, tell your friends. You know, form a sort of like a book club, you know, a podcast club, and just get together every single week and just talk about this podcast.
Sit in a room with your headphones on, because that's how you enjoy your podcast. You don't want people to actually hear it as well. Do it on your own, but in a group of people all listening to different podcasts. Yeah. And then when you finish listening to your podcast, leave that room without speaking to anybody. In fact, do it while waiting for a bus in a bus station. That's what pretty much I've just described.
In fact, don't share it. Be selfish. Just keep it to yourself. Yeah. That's it.
Just scratch it on the wall in biro.
Of the toilet with a big drawing of a knob. Yeah.
Yeah. It has to have 3 bits of spunk coming out the end. Otherwise, it don't count for me. I'm traditionalist. If you draw a knob on the wall, it needs at least 2 bits of spunk coming out the end.
And it's useless with that phone number underneath as well. So,
which I will try.
It's engaged again. Anyway, thanks for listening and watching.
Bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
They said you should have been here last week. I swear you should have been here last week. Oh yeah, you should have been here last week.